Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Associate Professor and Program Director of Communication, Media, and Ethics at Mid-America Christian University. I'm here to engage in the first of hopefully many digital dialogues, our asynchronous lecture series for COM 2143, Digital Media Literacy, and just an orientation for what this method or mechanism is to sustain interest and enthusiasm for our course. We are on an accelerated track together, and each of our students have an assignment where they are authoring weekly discussion questions pulled straight from the readings and screening materials in the class. At least they should be. And our goal is that each week you are making use of the text, you're processing it, you're finding a way to use it and it be useful to you. Submitting those questions, our goal is 2 questions per reading. That can feel like a lot some weeks. I assure you will be leaner in some weeks as well. Most importantly, it rewards that process of investing in the texts. We try to go out of our way to secure the kinds of readings that are really going to fuel you in your educational journey. And that's important. You're missing part of the process if you're skipping those every time you take a class. And so we try to build in these reward systems. You're getting solid credit, but also it's giving some raw materials for me to be able to utilize to have an asynchronous conversation with the class, to take some questions and engage them. Other classes, deeper later on in the major, you'll have exercises where you're asking each other questions. Maybe you're both posing or answering them. In this case, in this setting, our lower level courses, the instructors often engage them. Now, in a larger class like ours, it's hard to get to, if not impossible, to tackle every question submitted every week, and not every question perhaps deserves set attention if it has some mechanical issues or lacks clarity. But that's part of the point. Part of the point is this is a learning process, and we're getting better at it each and every time we give it a go. So I am here in the B studio, where I'm going to take some of your week 1 questions. Incredibly enthused by what I'm reading so far. Very excited for the journey we're now on, right? And away we go. So this is our one of our formats that we'll utilize during the class, and some weeks there'll be more questions, some weeks there may be less. But at least I try to take a little bit of a sample from everyone, appreciating all the commentary coming in. Let's start with some questions from Valerie or Val. I believe, do we have permission to use the Val shorthand there? I think she gave it to us online. Val writes, while reading Linda Spencer's book, Writing in the 21st Century, The 5 Essentials, I found one interesting, but also a little confusing. But one thing I found interesting, but also a little confusing, is on page 6 to 7. It is discussing the style sheet. And here's the question. In our current economy, do employers have a style sheet? Or is this just ultimately for a student? Hey, fair question, right? Sometimes we can get a little bogged down in style. You hear about it a lot. It gets reinforced in many courses, and not just the ones in your major. But there is an institutional purpose behind it. It's a uniform way of training us to be clearer, stronger communicators and technical writers. But let's not mince words here. That's important for the kind of diligence that you want to bring into a position, right? When you transfer into a different area of a workforce, let's talk about a couple of areas that I can guarantee will utilize a style sheet of some form or fashion. Journalism outlets, all right? Writing for websites. I wrote for a website for a couple of years. And when I first joined up, they sent me not only the rules and the guidelines for how to submit my work, how to send work to an editor, but also what are the writing style guidelines, right? In other words, how should I approach grammar rules for that website? And in addition, maybe how should I be practicing coding so that the emphasis that I am putting into writing is getting translated accurately for when it appears online. Well, that makes sense. That's and that's an ethical way of doing business. But let's remember, right? It's about high ethics. It's about strong, integrity-focused writing potential, right? Especially in the field of journalism. And our major kind of ebbs and flows in and out of what we could now consider digital journalism. And we're absolutely preparing students for that type of work in some of our courses. And sometimes it goes hand in hand with even the PR jobs and courses that we have as well. So journalism outlets, check. Institutes, are you going into higher ed for a career? Check. But let's remember, there's probably private companies and corporations where I'm going to definitely give it a circle star, probably. I know highly trained academics that left our field and went into, private sector, corporate world, and make a keen living as technical writers. They help develop manuals for large organizations, or they're helping draft reports. I know some of our students have talked about career interest in HR work. Well, my goodness, I mean, when you're putting together these legal business documents, I mean, you need to have a firm grasp on how to articulate yourself with max emphasis and intent and clarity. And whether it's APA or MLA, Chicago, or something else, just respecting the process of becoming more self-disciplined with our writing habits is professional development, right? We're investing in ourselves in the future, even if we're going to, let's say, abandon APA style and be doing something different for the rest of our life. Okay, well, I'm glad I had that training, or I'm glad I know how to get familiar with that. So that's a little bit of information on that front. All right, next question. Let's see, Nickelodeons. So I trust this is drawing from the Marcel Danisi's Popular Culture Introductory Perspectives book. Why were movie theaters called Nickelodeons? And follow-up question, why is the kids channel called Nickelodeon? And follow-up question to that, what is the difference between the two? Well, I'm glad you asked. Nickelodeon was a piece of technology, one of the earliest forms of a kind of mass media product that predated a combination of maybe what we consider television, but maybe also what we consider film. That is to say, motion pictures. So Nickelodeon, think about if you're on the boardwalk or the pier at a beach, right? And they have those like large looking steel binoculars, right, fashioned into the ground, and you go up there and you drop a coin in and you get to kind of gaze out further than your natural eye line is going to allow you, right? So a Nickelodeon was set up kind of like this. It was this approachable piece of public technology, maybe sometimes inside behind maybe an actual paywall, right? A wall you have to pay to get through into a room. But you would, let's say, drop a coin in, or maybe there's a prepay system ahead of time, and you would walk up and then you would look into a kind of binocular element, and often there was a turn crank, right, where you would get a kind of picture story. Some of the earliest versions even were lamplit, and like oil lamp lit, right, a projection image. And this was a kind of pay, walk up and participate piece of popular culture. And so it lends itself to a cultural emphasis and appreciation for visuals that we would see emerge in film. and in television later on. And so there is that historical context for the Nickelodeon. And in fact, the TV channel, this is the first follow-up question here, the TV channel thus pays homage to early media tech. And so it is absolutely a direct callback to that. But let's talk about the power of branding and the power of businesses. Notice how we have, how we reinvent this, right? And how it's a term I'm going to use probably a couple of times here based on the questions I've read so far. A term like Nickelodeon, when it becomes a label for a TV channel and eventually a corporate brand, and thus over time our familiarity shifts toward the corporate label, and we gain distance and forget about the former, and thus the meaning of that term becomes what we call reappropriated, right? Its use value, its cultural recognition changes, it shifts. So now once again we're looking at communication, we're looking at the nature of it and what that means for us. And so that's also a term, a rich term that's used in cultural studies as well, and some other kind of cross-disciplinary areas of interest. What a great set of opening questions from Val. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break here, reset things, and take a deeper dive into many, many more questions in our next segment. All right, so sit tight. We're just getting started. There's a lot more to come.